So today, I think what we're going to tackle over the course of a couple weeks is looking at like really practical ways that people can use Gen AI. And I think like where we're going to start is with Copilot and taking a look at that, right? The main thing that I'm hearing from groups and people and leadership is how do we embrace this tool to help with the migration transition to more programmers in the open source space and specifically in the drug development space using R for late stage clinical trials. And so I think there's some stuff there where this can help with some of that. It's not perfect, but I do think there's a piece to this that's pretty cool. So we're going to show some of this today on how people can use Copilot to create some shiny apps. Okay.
Love it.
All right, bud. So why don't you open up our studio and
Word.
you can
I think the big thing about Copilot, everybody's used to the ChatGPT interface, right? Of like where you're just like a chat back and forth with a superhuman artificial intelligence thing. Copilot is much more like recommendation driven, but you can actually talk to it. So I just did this a second ago. I'm curious. What is it? Ask my little question, and then get a smart aleck response. I wanted to know what date is today. What is today's date? Let's see if it knows.
Yesterday I was on a call with some customers and I was just doing some silly stuff and I had it write a poem about my dog. And it did a pretty good job right on the fly. So.
About dog. Oh wait, here we go. It's not as it's not as great as like ChatGPT and like the chatbot interface. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things here because like I think like when I show people Copilot for the first time, like one of the light bulbs that go off is like the way that they prompt it or interact with it is like through these comments.
Yeah, right. And so that's what's like it's kind of interesting that like comment notion. And the Q&A thing is like a nice way to like make it into a chatbot, but
Yeah.
the other thing you can do is like a shiny app. No, I don't want more questions. I want you to write the UI of the shiny app, please. Thank you.
There you
Oh, look at that. It got all these ideas from my prompts up front.
I think that context is important, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think when I show people this for the first time, their like mental map is trying to attach it to like the experience I've had interacting with Chat GPT in a web browser, right? And I think one of the big themes that I think I would hone in on here is that we're a code force data science company, right? Like we believe that the work that you're going to do is impacted with code. You can take that, build workflows. It's repeatable. So we have this pretty heavy prerequisite that you're going to be working with code, right?
Yep.
And to do that, like that happens in an environment where you're programming, right? And so that's an IDE, right? Like this integrated development environment, which is our studio. So having a tool that's integrated into where the code first data science happens is a huge piece of the puzzle for me. And so that's why I like the fact that you're not running two screens. You've got Chat GPT on one screen. You're asking it questions, getting the results and copying it over. Like this is just happening natural as you're inside of the script, you know?
Yep, exactly.
And so I think like what's important to show here, and maybe it's even worth backing up, is like you just created a shiny app.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm curious what it looks like.
I know. I'm always impressed that Copilot works too, mostly on the first try. Like I get something that works. You know.
It's really good. Yeah, but the cool thing I love about pairing this stuff with an IDE is the way that if like Copilot makes a silly suggestion, like let's do with ggplot2. Let's see if it makes a nice ggplot2 recommendation. maybe.
Mhm. That's another thing I've noticed is that like to get it to do it, you have to like interact with it in a way that's like, oh, okay, I'm going to generate the code now.
Yeah, exactly. But like, for instance, like the fact that ggplot2 is not loaded and not installed, the IDE is what's picking that up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because like if I try to run this, we're gonna have problems. There's no package called ggplot2, but the IDE recognized that, and so like it's all just tools that you get them to work together, right? So the IDE is helping me install this package, um,
I think
and
something else that's pretty cool here is when I was playing with it yesterday and I said to create a Shiny app with ggplot2 and the diamonds data, it launched the Shiny function for the package. Then it wrote the app. And then I went back to the top and it realized that I didn't load ggplot2. And so
yeah,
it prompted to do that, which is pretty cool. So it's like assessing as you're coding what's happening in different sections. And so there was another section where I did something up above. It detected that, and then it put the reference to it in the next function.
that's
So it's
awesome.
kind of like a linkage here that happens, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the key. Like if I mess up, part of this, like the IDE is going to pick that up,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so it's not necessarily going to give me Copilot's not going to give me the solution necessarily unless I go to the right line. Then it does.
I
And
think
so yeah, Copilot's definitely much more of an assistant than like a ChatGPT would be like, hey, write this app for me. But but it is. It's nice that you can iterate on what you're doing with trying to get that stuff working. It's
because what
really
I usually tell people is like, I'm under the impression that Copilot seems to be really good for like intermediate to advanced users that are looking to enhance like the coding that they're doing. I think there's a great video of at R and Pharma last year where Devin past year was doing a workshop and he used Copilot to write like a complex regular expression, right?
yeah
Like that's a pretty good way to like have Copilot assist you. And just like what you're doing now is like, hey, help generate this plot that I want to make.
yeah
I think if you're a beginner, it's going to be a bit tricky, especially if it spits out something that's error prone.
yep yeah exactly. That's the thing is like you got to know what to do with its kind of with its stuff. Is it happy with me? Hey, look at that. Carrot and price. Turns out, as you get a higher carat diamond, it gets more expensive. Who knew? Although there are some 1 carat diamonds that are really expensive because of their purity.
Mm.
Good times. Ask me how I know.
Good call out.
um, good times. So, what else should we do to this app? Any ideas?
Here's what I would do. Why don't you start over? All right. So Cole, we're going to create a Shiny app using GenAI, and let's see if we can get it to work on the first try. So nice,
Yeah.
simple, clean instructions here. So Shiny app with ggplot2 and diamonds. And let's see what
I'm gonna say empty cars.
empty cars. Empty cars is it's fine. A little basic. It's funny when I do it, it usually doesn't give me ggplot2 right there.
Boom.
There you go. Oh, you need your server function at the end.
Oh yeah, thank you. You're right. This guy. Boom.
See what we get. All right. So you got a working Shiny app. First try. Let's see. Can you take this and add Plotly on the ggplot2 visualization?
Oh yeah.
So let's see if we can add Plotly. So
And I think I have to do it here. So, or maybe I do it here first. There we go.
There you go. There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Let's see what happens when we run this
Let me
puppy.
delete this puppy. Oopsie. Okay. Oh look, I need to install Plotly. Thank you, IDE.
It's installing Plotly. We're taking a Shiny app that we made with GenAI, and we started off with ggplot2. Now we're going to use Plotly for it. You. What environment are you using here? Demo?
Oh, this is dedicated. Yeah.
Dedicated? Oh, okay. Cool. I was going to say, I don't see the crazy names of the servers that usually pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mostly wanted to start playing with this instance more, so I can know that it's happy and good to go. Dang, Plotly's got a lot of stuff in it.
A lot of stuff. Look
at that. Snazziness. I'll tell you, man, Plotly's play with the ggplot and ggplotly was really brilliant.
Dude, it's brilliant. One line of code.
Yeah.
Adds so much power. I think for the simplicity's sake, it's probably one of the more powerful, visual analytics type tools that exist in R.
Oh yeah.
Because ggplot2 is such a effective and simple package, and then to have another layer of simplicity on the top of that even accelerates it, it's pretty stinking cool.
Can lasso all these things. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Carson, he does good work with this. And there's a Plotly book too. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I think.
What's you do? Is that good to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. So, I don't know, what if now you wanted to add a GT table underneath this? Could you do that?
Interesting.
We got to do up.
I need to... What? Why did you want to comment that, ChatGPT? I don't understand.
Just wants you to.
Of course, I got to install GT. That's always
GT.
I do love the interaction between the IDE and Copilot. The IDE is more focused on my syntactical correctness and my environment and all that stuff, formatting, that kind of stuff. And then Copilot brings a lot of the content, right? Of how do you monkey with a thing? What is the syntax for creating a GT output?
So somebody was asking me yesterday if they have a Shiny app, and the Shiny app is using another function in another file, or if there's something else that's related to that work that's being done, does Copilot go and assess those other files? Or is everything in this one file?
I know that's part of that's part of the product story there is right? How do you build the context and stuff like that? I mean, clearly something was happening because it literally just a second ago built a whole copy of my other file with all the comments removed. So clearly it has memory somewhere. It's like water. We were talking about
But can you put in your comment up there at the top and say hey, go read or go assess these files?
Oh, I don't think so.
And build me an app like this based on these other files.
Let's see.
I think there's a piece of this that comes up for me where people are I really want to use this, but it needs the context of the other files.
Yeah, it's totally confused. I mean, it's pretty cool though. It's building me a Shiny dashboard.
Dude, run that puppy. Did that work?
It's just the UI. Let me get the server. And then Shiny app. So I need a new folder. Collab.r. Need to install Shiny Dashboard. Clearly, I have like no packages installed in this environment. So that's something I need to fix. Okay, now let's run it.
I think the thing that I hear from the pharmacists is they're like, we really want to innovate with Shiny, and we want our programmers that are using other tools and other languages to come in and be able to start innovating with Shiny, but they don't always have the background with Shiny. So can this be, propel them into a place where they can start building apps? Like
I would say yes, because I literally did nothing except type tab. And this is what I got.
TypeTab. What's amazing
tab. Done.
Because yeah.
Now, for somebody coming into here, where do you think the challenges are going to be for someone to just come in here? They don't have a background with Shiny.
I think it's intimidating looking at this and being like, is this right? I don't know. And that's where you really do. You need and I think this will be a good plug for like the chat based stuff, because the chat based stuff can generate this whole thing all like you don't even need to press tab, right? It's just enter once. And there's like some things where you can like, copy this and give it back to the model and basically be like, hey, like, how would I change this? Or change this other thing. So you have like some iteration that you can do back and forth of like, can you explain, right? Explain what is going on here. And so you can do things like chat with this stuff, right? Dashboard, 2 tabs, one for plot, one for widgets. Okay, where's the 2 tabs? Oh, here we go. Tab items, tab item, tab item. So like you can totally dig into this and understand. I think honestly, a lot of the things, the most intimidating thing is starting. In martial arts, our sensei often says the hardest belt to get is the white belt, because most people will never get that. People always think black belt's the hardest, or like the 5th degree or whatever, right? Like, but it's like the white belt is the one that most people never get. And so it's the same thing, right? Like starting is the hardest part. But then you just need to have the good kind of like, okay, well, what are the ways I get more information when I need it? You've always got the search engines and Stack Overflow, but now you have this other tool in your pocket where you can just chat with all of the code bases on GitHub. And then the model that Microsoft trained on it.
There's like 2 things I'll add here. Like one, I was in a workshop showing people like tools with GenAI, and this programmer came up to me who was using stats, and she said, look, like this has made it much more approachable to me to take that first step. Like I've been on the fence trying to think like, how do I learn this? Where do I get started? But now having like a tool in here that helps you get started and using something that you can prompt and ask questions about is a pretty interesting piece of this puzzle. But I would say like, I still think like watching you here and working with this myself, like this is a good tool for like, I sort of know what I'm doing, or I know what I'm doing, right? I think when I was talking to that person about using GenAI to help them take that first step, what they were referring to was working with ChatGPT and Chatter inside the IDE, which is a little bit more natural to like the prompting of like a UI that someone has. And I think like we'll cover that in a separate video, but I think like right now, like the Copilot piece is a pretty powerful story for people to see. And if you're looking to get up and running and you do know how to program, or maybe you've even programmed another language, like hopefully they see that this is pretty approachable and they can do it. Like, but there's just a couple of different comments that they add. And I think the next step here is like those people need to have an internal community or like a competency center or a champion or somebody that then they can go to and say, look, I built this app and it's close to what I want, right? This is what I want now. And so
you can play at Project Cloud,
Yeah, exactly.
Go try it out.
So actually, Google, if you don't mind, Posit Cloud and Copilot. Like there's a really good article that shows like, here's how you get up and running with Posit Cloud and Copilot. Right, it's right there. It's really good. And so like when I've been showing people this, like they take my workshops and then afterwards they're like, how do I keep using this? I'm like, you can use it. right? Like just go create a free account on Posit Cloud. It's free. There's no cost to it. And you can learn R. And there's primers there. There's like examples that you can pull online. There's the R for data science book. And then they can just activate Copilot right inside of Posit Cloud, which is pretty cool, but
That's
I still
awesome.
think there needs to be a human element, like especially if you're a stat programmer, you've been working for stats for 10 years and you do build a shiny app, you need to go to someone and say, hey, does this make sense? Or, hey, I'm getting this error. What do I do? And I think that's one reason why I like so much the GSK team is that they have that type of support internally.
Yeah. Or we have this Posit community too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really amazing stuff online, but I think like what you said that resonated with me so much is the whole, like, the 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step, right? Like you got to, it's that first step. And I think the more we can make things approachable, I think the more people will migrate into the world of open source,
Yep, totally agree.
All right, so this is Copilot. Copilot helped you create, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 shiny apps in about 5 minutes. So where do you see this going, Cole? Do you think, if you had to guess a year from now?
What's weird to me is years are going by so fast. Like it feels like it was yesterday that ChatGPT like fell on the scene and everybody was like, "What?" That was a year ago. So I think it'll simultaneously go further than we think and less not as far as we think. Like a year from now it'll look very similar, but it'll also be probably a lot better in quality, and the interfaces will continue to get better of like how you're interacting with it inside of an IDE, that kind of thing. But 10 years from now, I have no idea. That's a lot will change in 10 years, hopefully.
Could you see it like a day where they prompt to create the shiny app and then they prompt to say, now test this, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
right?
that's already happening today. People are totally doing that.
Yeah.
I think the tooling is kind of janky for doing that, but there definitely are like those types of things. And like there's stuff like, write me some unit tests because I don't like writing unit tests.
Yeah. And then what about like taking action? Like, do you see a world where they'll be like, okay, I just created a shiny app. I used the GenAI to create the unit test and now I'm ready to deploy it. Do you see a day where they'll just be like, hey, deploy this for me too?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like we're building tools that help the deployment to connect, right? And so it could very much be like, oh yeah, like we trained this model, this LLM on your admin docs. And so it knows how to use the Posit CLI, or it knows how to run the deployment in the IDE, like those types of things. That's really where I think a lot of the work is for people like us, is building those interfaces. They call it an AI agent, I think is the phrase, where like it can take certain actions. And so like you could imagine, having like, all right, I want to deploy this now. And it's like, it saves you having to click on that little blue publish button over here in the IDE. It just does it for you. And
so one thing I would show Cole before we wrap up today is one thing that we're exploring with Pharma is a workshop in October that is basically taught by GenAI, right? And so one thing that you and I did for a workshop a couple of weeks ago is we created a bunch of notebooks that basically had the prompts pre-built, right?
Yeah.
So like one thing I think would be cool here, because I do think the story and a big part of like what I've been telling people is you can use GenAI and Copilot to create shiny apps pretty quickly, But what about like opening up a Quarto document, and in those chunks you can have like a more traditional workflow. So let's say you want to create a Quarto document and go to the source version real quick.
Yeah.
And now just delete all that text, like all the prose at the top. Yeah, right there. And so let's just do something like a real basic workflow, which is typically like import some data, build, tweak the data a bit, and then build a visualization. So like something that's taking steps, right? So you can have, if you hit Control-Alt-I, or I don't know what it is on a Mac, but you can insert some code chunks. So like this top one's going to be, like get the data, right? And then the next one might be like, okay, so we've got the data. let's actually like use dplyr to edit the data.
Yeah, that's what it's doing here. It's filtering it to ideal diamonds.
Yeah,
And
perfect.
then you want to do something like
Yes. Yeah.
plot theta.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, and then you can run this.
Yeah.
In that chunk. Yeah.
Doc. Render this puppy.
Yeah, or just run the chunk with the.
Oh yeah, I should have done that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I think what's cool here is that like oftentimes what you see is like a more agile method of creating shiny apps where like people start off creating like the ggplot2 visualization, and then it's usually taking that. Yeah, then they create a dashboard using Corto with that, right? And maybe they start adding Plotly, and then their users are like, "Hey, that HTML-based report was really cool, but I really want to look at this geographic region, or I want to look at these, patients,
Type of
right?"
diamonds.
Yeah, so you get into Shiny. But I think there's like also an important story here that as you're working on your data and building like that beginning phase, like you can do that in a Corto document, and the Gen AI piece can help you here too. And I could see a world where like what we were doing is like, and internally you build these notebooks that have these prompts kind of built in for you that people can learn from. And so I imagine on GitHub or in repositories or classes, like you'll see a day and age probably coming pretty soon where there'll just be empty notebooks in places. Like, hey, do you want to learn about my new package? Here's an empty notebook with the prompts. Go run this. Right.
Yep.
And I think that's going to be a cool thing. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what level of like engagement that provides with like learners,
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's awesome.